going back to the ships, the guys at Norwegian tell me when the ships get old, they just refurbish them completely, the smaller ones. They're cash cows. They're never going to get rid of them. They're building more because this business is expanding. And so we will always have ships coming to Cayman. Always.
And that's what I don't understand, is why our government is selling Cayman short in this whole deal.
Right.
Because it's almost insulting, because it is insulting because you're saying that we are not enough as we stand now to justify a bigger importance to in this deal. And it's like they need us more than we need them in this situation.
Absolutely.
And, and we can say this because we also have a shop on the waterfront. So we depend on tourism
so
in general.
you welcome as much people as walking through there.
I mean, the more people, the better. Absolutely. But it's unreal how this misleading information that is being said to the public that we are going to die as a result of not allowing this port to be built. And it's just simply not true. And what would happen if this port wasn't built? We would still have the cruise ship business like we do today. And we would have a greater emphasis, hopefully, on the shoreside infrastructure that should be a part of our improvement regardless. So it really doesn't make any sense. And it's so disappointing, especially as what the other caller said earlier, is that, we have representatives in the MLA who are not representing the best interests of their constituents.
Well, when you look at, for example, the EAB, which a lot of people, just for full disclosure, and I don't care what anybody say, I'm one person, Philip can tell you, I've tasked him if he wants to be near me, he has to read everything and read it all and read all sides.
Knowledge is power.
There you go. And I could not find that anywhere. It was the hardest thing to find, and multiple people tried looking for that EAB. It was left on my windscreen after complaining I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But now it's easily accessible on the DOT's website. Which
everything should be easily accessible.
But as even the premier said on the show, on the floor of the LA in his delivery to the referendum bill, he admits that not all information is together in one collated area. So they're going to create a booklet that is going to give you the information, but not all the information that really will be for the other side as well. But the EAB, good doctor, and for Philip, I want you to do it again, because this has been debunked by everybody on the Virgin Island, the pro side, as a useless piece of paper and a biased piece of paper that was put out. The EAB, in a nutshell, is a report card that was done by a government body, made up of how many people, Philip?
Six departments, 7 people.
Departments. Yeah.
Yep.
Can you read those departments out for me, please?
Yes. So we have Miss Gina Ebanks Petrie, who is the Environmental Assessment Board Chair, for the Director of the Department of Environment, Mr. Dennis Thiebaud, who is the Assistant Director to the National Roads Authority, Miss Rosa Harris, Director of Tourism for the Department of Tourism, Mr. Haroon Pandui, Director of Planning from the Department of Planning, Miss Peggy Leshiker-Denton, Director of the Cayman Islands National Museum, Mr. Clement Reed, Deputy Port Director of the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands, along with James Parsons, Acting Port Director.
And in that report, if we just take it in that report, they were commissioned to assess on behalf of the government the EIA that was done by Beard. The report averages a D-. They had 2 C-, which was the highest marks that they had. The rest were F-. So we gave them an average of a D- for the whole entire report. It was a failing report on all aspects of it. For example, water clarity. They said that will be lost completely, even post-operation, not just doing what you were saying, doing the construction aspect of it. And because of all of those variables, any business afterwards was even then questionable of how they would actually withstand the storm, so to speak. And I simply don't understand why that has been completely ignored in all of every presentation done by the government i.e. the premier and the deputy premier. What do you think?
You got such a wide-ranging group of special interest and experienced people. And of course, the EIA needs to be partially redone because the whole orientation of the docks and the apron has changed. The geotechnical report hasn't been done yet.
But how can you make a conclusion,
well,
good
this is
doctor?
it.
But that's the point.
Yeah.
How is that fair?
Yeah.
How is that fair? How can you ask us to make such a big decision without all the information? And we're not necessarily the experts. How can you expect your people to make a decision without all the information? No one should expect anybody to do that, and also there should be transparency in that too. It's just not fair.
And you talk about, well, getting into the details of the whole dredging process and, silt curtains and over dredging and what you do with the spoil and all the rest of it, relocation. The bigger argument still needs to be pushed against why are you doing this when we don't need any more cruise shippers? We are at capacity with 1.9 million. In fact, that figure is larger because those figures come from the passengers that CMS bring ashore.
Correct.
There are also additional passengers that come on their own lifeboats that are not added to that figure. And then you have a small amount of crew. So, some of these arguments about, you're losing the crew spend by not having a dock, is totally fallacious. We're such an expensive island. The crew on these ships, and I've talked with many of them on Norwegian, for the most part, they're from the Philippines, from India, and some of the Caribbean countries. They're often in couples on board. That's the best way to be if you're going to be positioned somewhere for 3 or 4 months at a time. Have your wife go with you, so to speak, or your husband. And they save their money. They take it home. They're not going to spend it in expensive Cayman. So this whole argument about, you're going to improve the crew spend, for example, is totally rubbish. There are many other things. I'm not going to get into the details of the advantage of having ships tie up and all that, but we've been concentrating on the fact that we have been sold an incorrect story by the government that everybody's going to benefit. More people does not necessarily translate into more money. And we know from our store there is a direct inverse relationship between the number of ships and the amount of money that is spent in our store. 2 or 3 ships is about optimal. Once you get above 4 or 5 or 6, it goes down. And that's a consistent statistic that we've had over the year. 60% of our business comes from stayover, 40% from cruise. And we haven't even touched on stayover yet. The stayover visitors, as you know, Woody, they spend 10 times in a day what a cruise shipper does.
Correct.
And so we should be focusing on building better, nicer hotels like the Kimpton, like the Ritz, like Marriott, and have a better class of, when I say that, a better quality of visitor come here. And it goes back to the presentation I did to caucus way back in 2014. When did we change our philosophy of really being a high-end niche destination to becoming a mass market destination? And nobody could answer that question. Nobody. I was really surprised because this sort of move from being, a really unique, special place that really takes care of its environment has now attracted the sort of mass market attention, and the government, for whatever reason, has gone on this course, which I think is really the wrong thing to do. We cannot compete with Mexico or Jamaica or Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic. And they talk about landside attractions. We have 5 main landside attractions, but our greatest attraction is our water. As I said in my letter, we're a much bigger place underwater.
It is.
And why are you risking even part of that? Who is going to set up all these other attractions?
Things
where are you going to
go.
put them? I tongue-in-cheek said we're going to have a zip line from the top of Mount Trustmore into the North Sound. But really, can you see 300,000 people going through the Crystal Caves?
We got we got the whole entire Barkers, remember?
Yeah.
Not one blade of grass, but we got to go back and negotiate with the DOE on that aspect of it. So just bear that in mind. That wonderful sanctuary that was once going to be our national park is no longer a national park, and a lot of people, I think, that is there. good doctor, I want to, Leonard, go back to that. Go back to, if you can, Leonard, some of those pictures. We're pushing some pictures up on the screen right now. You see this one, good doctor? I need your opinion on this one. All right. Here is a picture that we received from DOE that Leonard has up on the screen now of the reefs and so forth. Now, we saw pictures and so forth, and truth be told, when I was on the port board, we were shown videos, good doctor, of a landscape that looked like the surface of the moon. I didn't dive those areas in a long period of time because I live in northwest of 7 Mile Beach. So that was our hunting ground, so to speak. I never went to Georgetown Harbor.
Didn't need to.
Didn't need to. We just had everything literally offshore, even shrimp, believe it or not.
Wow.
I just missed my beautiful West Bay Beach. But long story short, the minister, Wayne Panton, came to the whole entire Port Authority, good doctor, and chartered, I'm not sure if he did personally or whether or not it was through the ministry, but long story short, the whole entire government was on the submarine, on the Atlantis submarine, along with the whole entire Port Authority. And I was sitting next to Councillor Winston Conley at the time. And I remember people going, oh, and we were discombobulated. I'm not going to lie to no one. We thought we were going, for example, we were seeing Devil's Grotto or something of that nature because it was so beautiful. But there's life here. Not purported to be this surface of the moon kind of aspect of it. And Miss Gina was on there as well to narrate and say what things were. And I just want to sincerely thank the former minister, Wayne Panton, for showing people what the realities were. Long story short, we asked the pilot to surface, and if we can stand on the deck while surface. We surfaced, and we were right off of the apron of the cargo facility, and everyone looked at each other in awe. And I remember Winston looking to me, goes, what? Like, really? This is here. And we went further down to Soto's Reef and so forth. And what took me aback the other day, and this is recorded, so anybody can go back and look at it on Crosstalk, KMAN Crosstalk Facebook page. I asked Dr. Vaughn. He was articulating that it's the surface of the moon and anchor chains have destroyed all of this. And I asked him, did you dive that area? That clearly took him over to the drop-off and not to where we needed to go. And I hope between now, or then and now, that he's been awoke, so to speak, and taken to that area. But those are the kind of misleading aspects I think the whole entire Cayman Islands are seeing, because that same video was presented on September the 26th, 2018 at the Family Life Center. Sans any appearance by the director of DOE or any members of the DOE, but presented by whom?
Dave Miller.
A layperson that was giving us advice on the environment. I like Dave a great deal, but Dave is not a doctor. Dave is probably last time he scuba dived, maybe, I'm not sure, Dave can correct me if I'm wrong, probably 20 years ago. So those are the kind of things that really bother me in this picture. Yeah,
and we can change that now because the recent statistic is that 54% of the ships that come don't actually anchor because they have these directional pods. GPS.
That's correct.
And all
GPS.
that. They can maneuver, and it's all pretty safe, even in high winds. So going forward, we could actually just mandate less and less anchoring until there's no anchoring whatsoever, depending on the capacity of the ships to maneuver. But that can be easily done. It's and eradicate the whole anchoring issue for forever.
Well,
and it will come back slowly, not in time. But we wouldn't need to have a coral replenishment program.
We can have Dr. Vaughn come back and do his planting nevertheless, regardless.
I would love him to come back and do some other coral growth and transplanting.
In conjunction
processes.
with the national coral replenishment policy,
of the DOE,
the DOE,
So he's got some very innovative ideas that have obviously worked, but not on such a big scale as being planned here. But his findings would definitely be beneficial to any Caribbean island. And here, because we're fairly well financed and we have a real inherent interest in the well-being of our coral because it's such an important product in our tourism focus, that it would be great to have that kind of ongoing work. It doesn't have to be a one-time deal. It can be ongoing for decades because that's what it's going to take.